Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today we shall be talking about digital image processing. So far, I assume you all have understood the concept of remote sensing and you have also studied what are visual image interpretation techniques. So, in this module, we shall be talking about what is a digital image, like it is made up of pixels, what are its characteristics. We shall also study about the components of an image processing system and various steps that are required for carrying out image processing, like image correction, geometric correction, radiometric correction, image enhancement, image transformation and finally image classification techniques. So, at the end of this module, we will also study the importance and application of digital image processing. Let us begin with the module. So, the aim of the present module is to prepare the readers with the fundamental concepts behind digital images and the different processing steps and providing solutions to different problems which a user may encounter from the beginning itself or in between the process. So, let us begin with the representation of a digital image. A digital image is like a grey colored two-dimensional matrix made up of finite set of squared cells arranged in rows and columns as is visible in the figure. These cells in digital world are called as picture elements or pixels and have some assigned numerical values called as digital number, which in remote sensing relates to the brightness of the cell. A row of pixels is called as a scan line. Okay, now coming to the history of digital image processing, the development in digital image processing has been evolved since the inception of digital computers and the two go in parallel. Digital image processing methods were first introduced in 1920s. In 1921, Bartline cable picture transmission system used to transmit digitized newspaper images over submarine cable line between London and New York. The availability of digital computers was powerful enough to perform meaningful image processing tasks that appeared in early 1960s. The use of such computers and algorithms for improving the quality of images of the moon taken by Ranger 7 probe started at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of NASA, USA in 1964. Further, 1970s saw a surge in space missions and computing technology. The photographs captured using photographic imaging techniques were transferred to computers for the purpose of automated computer analysis using raster digitization methods. Second, the invention of computerized tomography for medical diagnosis and the release of satellite images of Earth and extraplanetary features taken by Landsat missions for Earth observation in early 1970s were landmark incidents that featured the later development of digital image processing techniques. Now, let us talk about the essential components of an image processing system. Any image processing task includes few essential components. For example, any sensing step will require a physical device that will be sensitive towards absorbing reflected or emitted energy from the source object, and secondly a digitizer that will basically convert the energy absorbed by the physical sensors, for example in an electrical output form into a digital form. Now, coming to the difference between an analog image and a digital image. Any photographic image is an analog picture or image in the form of a physical record compressing pieces of paper or film with chemical coatings on it that represent a record of pattern of the image. In analog images, the brightness within an image is analogous or proportional to the brightness within a scene. The problem lies with the analog pictures is that the user faces difficulties in storage, transmission, searching and analysis. Contrary to analog images, the digital images are arrays of pixels, each with a discrete digital number and are also discernible when analyzed visually. The advantages of having digital images are that they can be easily handled, stored, transmitted, retrieved, exchanged from one format to other and statistically manipulated, which is not possible in the case of analog images. Although our ability increases to display, examine and analyze the modern remotely sensed digital image data, but these data are also subject to damage to disk drives, magnetic fields and deterioration of the physical media. Sometimes the user also faces problem in accessing old data because of obsolescence of the hardware necessary to read the digital data. Now coming to digital image, in remote sensing, a digital image acquired through different sensors is represented in the form of a matrix consisting of pixels arranged in rows and columns. Each pixel has a unique location and are indexed according to their radiometric resolution. For example, pixels of 8-bit image is indexed between 0 to 255. A subset of a multispectral Landsat image is shown in the coming figure, which is also utilized for different purpose in later sections. The associated and additional information such as metadata of the image is stored either in a separate file or placed in the data file itself as a header. The image file contains only pixel values. So, this is the image that we were talking about, in which you can see combination of matrix of rows and columns with different colors representing the different brightness values of a Landsat 8 satellite. Now, coming to the first step of remote sensing image processing, that is image acquisition. The reflected energy acquisition from the Earth's surface is measured by imaging sensors that has a capability to digitize the signal collected by the sensor in its video and digital camera. The sensors are mounted on an aircraft or aircraft platforms. In remote sensing, an imaging system is a complex system that involves reflection or scattering of energy from the Earth's surface, followed by transmission through the atmosphere to sensors and the data transmission from sensor to ground station on the Earth's surface. After an initial pre-processing such as conversion from volts to digital number, removing of noises, resampling and other techniques, the data is ready in an image format to be utilized for different purposes such as land use, land cover study, disaster monitoring or environmental pollution studies. The data are recorded in optical as well as microwave spectral regions through both active and passive sensing, and hence are delivered into distributed spectral bands at certain spatial and radiometric resolution. Generally, the digital images are of 4 kinds. The first one is binary, that is 0 to 1, either present or absent. The second is grayscale, that is also black to white, but in varying grayscales from 0 to 255. The third one is true color or red, green, blue composite. It also has the range from 0 to 255 for an 8-bit data and can vary for different colored images. And the last one is indexed digital image. Further, the data is acquired and delivered in raster and vector format with additional information in a metadata form. The digital images obtained from multispectral sensors are arranged in different spectral bands and are represented in a matrix form as shown below. For example, you can see the scan line, the pixels and the 3 bands that make up the composite in a multispectral image. Now, coming to data formats, the digital data for storing purpose are organized in the following 3 formats. An image, for example, consisting of 3 bands of same resolution can be visualized as 3 superimposed images with corresponding pixels in one band registered exactly to those in other bands. The data formats are, the first one is band interleaved by pixel, that is also called as BIP format. This is one of the initial formats for digital data. In this, the data are organized in sequence values for line 1, pixel 1, band 1, then for line 1, pixel 1, band 2 and finally, line 1, pixel 1, band 3. Next are the 3 bands for line 1, pixel 2 and so on. In this way, the pixel values of pixel 1 for all the 3 bands are written, followed by the values for the next pixel, pixel 2, pixel 3 and so on. This arrangement is advantageous for many analysis in which the pixel value or the digital number vector is queried or required to calculate another quantity. The disadvantage with this image format is that it becomes bulky while displaying. The next data format is band interleaved by line. The BIL treats each line of the data as a separate unit. In sequence, the data are arranged as line 1 for band 1, line 1 for band 2, line 1 for band 3, line 2 for band 1, line 2 for band 2, line 2 for band 3 and so on. In this way, each line is represented in all the 3 bands before the next line is encountered. A common variation in the BIL format is to group lines in sets of 3 or 7, for example, rather than to consider each single line as unit. The next is band sequential or BSQ format. In this, all the data for band 1 are written in sequence, followed by all data for band 2 and so on. In this, each band is treated as a separate unit. This is the most commonly applied image format since it presents the data which closely matches the data structure used for display and analysis. Now, coming to image pre-processing, it is a process to enhance the image in order to make it suitable for further processing. It includes mainly radiometric and geometric correction. Let us talk about geometric correction first. The geometric distortions in the remote sensed images is inherent in the nature and depends on the manner in which they are acquired. The geometric distortions in the images occur due to several reasons which can be broadly classified into 2 broad categories: systematic or predictable errors and non-systematic or random errors. The sources of systematic or internal errors are: the first is geometric distortion in the image due to terrain effects such as differences in elevation. The second is cross scan geometric distortion due to skew in ground swath at the time of scanning. By the time ground swath takes place, the ground track changes due to the movement of space or aircraft. Third is along scan geometric distortion due to changing mirror scan rate at the time of scan. Fourth one is panoramic distortion, that is the ground area imaged is proportional to the tangent of the scan angle rather than the angle itself. The platform instability while scanning results in non-systematic or external errors. This is caused by platform attitude represented by roll, yaw and pitch, the changes during forward motion, and this leads to image rotation and image displacement along track and across track while scanning as shown in the figure. Change in the remote sensing platform altitude causes the change in scale at constant angular instantaneous field of view and field of view. Now, continuing the geometric corrections. All the remote sensing application requires planimetrically correct versions of remotely captured images, so that they will match to other images and will provide the basis for accurate measurements or distance and area. So, geometric distortions can be rectified using the methods given below. First is isoorbital geometry modeling and transformation based on ground control points. The ground control points are identified spectrally distinct areas as small as a few pixels, denoted as image coordinates. To interrelate the geometrically correct map and coordinates and the distorted image coordinates, a coordinate transformation is performed by applying a least square regression analysis to the set of ground control points and determining the coefficients of transformation matrix for linear or non-linear transformations. The first step is georegistration and georeferencing. The geometric registration involves identifying several image coordinates, that is row and columns or GCPs in the distorted image, and link them to the true positions in a target map or ground coordinates such as latitude, longitude, using transformation function that basically relates the coordinates of two systems. The true ground coordinates are typically measured from a target map either in paper or digital format. The target map could be a topographic or any other map that have been transformed to the wanted map projection system before. This is called as image to map registration. Geometric registration may also be performed by registering one or more images to another image instead of to geographic coordinates. This is called image to image registration. So, rectification is the process by which the geometry of an image area is made planimetric. The accuracy of the registration at each ground control point after registration is measured in terms of the location error, which is the root mean square error. The standard deviation of the difference between actual position of GCPs and their new calculated position, that is after registration. These differences between measured and transformed GCP coordinates are known as residual error or simply residuals. Georeferencing with subsequent resampling is geocoding and includes two steps. First is each new raster pixel is projected using transformation function onto the original image, and second, a digital number for the new pixel is determined and stored. Coming to resampling, image resampling is a process of interpretation to bring an image into registration with another image or a planimetrically correct map. Resampling scales, rotates, translates and performs related manipulations as necessary to bring the geometry of an uncorrected image to match a particular reference image of desired properties. The computationally efficient and preferred resampling approach is a nearest neighbor in which each corrected pixel is assigned the value from the nearest uncorrected pixel. A relatively more complex resampling approach is bilinear interpolation, where a value is calculated for each output pixel based on a weighted average of the 4 nearest input pixels. Isocubic convolution is another approach that uses a weighted average of values within a neighborhood that extends about 2 pixels in each direction, usually encompassing 16 adjacent pixels. So, these are the methods of resampling that we just discussed, and in all the 3 images, the black image is the original raster image, while the pink image is the resampled area. As you can see, in nearest neighbor only 1 pixel is taken into consideration, while in bilinear adjacent 4 pixels are taken into consideration, and in isocubic or bicubic the adjacent 16 pixels are taken into consideration. The next step is transformation. It is an integral part of georeferencing and involves 2 steps: selection of suitable transformation method and secondly to determination of the transformation parameters. The polynomial transformation is a general type of transformation that involves first, second and nth order of transformations. The first order polynomial transformation relates map coordinates with image coordinates in the following manner. For example, if map coordinates are x and y and image coordinates are m and n, then x is equal to a plus b m plus c n and y is equal to d plus e m plus f n. The 6 transformation parameters a to f in the above equations is determined by a required number of ground control points using a least squares adjustment for overall best fit of image and map. For the second and third polynomial, a minimum number of GCPs is 6 and 10 respectively. The next is radiometric corrections. It includes correcting for sensor irregularities and unwanted sensor or atmospheric noise causing visible errors in the raw data and converting the data so that they accurately represent the reflected or emitted radiation measured by the sensor. The radiometric problems in the data are mainly of 3 kinds. The first is periodic line dropouts, the second is line stripping and the third is random noise or spike correction. So, after correction, the next step in image processing is image enhancement. The purpose of enhancement is to prepare the image more interpretable for a particular application or feature extraction. The image enhancement techniques can be classified in many ways. For example, in contrast enhancement or global enhancement, the raw data is transformed by using the statistics computed over the entire image. The examples of contrast enhancement techniques are linear contrast stretch, histogram equalized stretch, and piecewise contrast stretch. On the other hand, spatial or local enhancement considers the local conditions only, and these can vary considerably over an image. The examples of spatial enhancement techniques are image smoothing and sharpening filters. So, the first technique in enhancement is contrast enhancement. It involves changing the original values so that more of the available range is used, thereby increasing the contrast between target and their background. The contrast enhancement thus utilizes image histogram to be stretched over the entire gray range. As is visible in the image, you can see the lowest value is interpolated up to 0 and the highest value of image is interpolated up to 255 in an 8-bit image. In linear contrast stretch of an 8-bit image, a DN value in the low end of the original histogram is assigned to extreme black and a value at the high end is assigned to extreme white. The remaining pixel values are distributed linearly between these two extremes. So, it is also a non-linear transformation of image pixels where the original histogram is adjusted to create a uniform pixel density along the horizontal gray value axis. So, this involves two steps. It computes the histograms of the original image and the cumulative frequency density percentage and computation of transformation function based on which the contrast manipulation takes place in the output scene. Thus, in this method both the shape and the extent of the histogram is taken into consideration. The next technique is piecewise linear stretch. This method is similar to the linear contrast stretch, but the linear interpolation of the output values is applied between user defined digital number values. This method is useful to enhance only a certain land cover type, maybe for example water. The data values for this feature are in the range of 5 to 18, and in order to be able to discriminate as much as possible, it is wise to use all available gray levels for this feature only. In this way, detailed differences within the feature of interest appear, whereas the remaining features are assigned to a single gray tone. Another technique in enhancement is spatial filtering. In this method, the image is divided into its constituent spatial frequencies, number of changes in brightness values per unit distance for any particular part of an image, and selectively altering certain spatial frequencies to emphasize some image features. Thus, spatial filters are designed to highlight or suppress specific features in an image based on their spatial frequency. Spatial frequency is related to the image texture. For example, in a rough textured area of an image, the tonal changes are very high over a small area and have very high spatial frequencies, while smooth areas with few changes in tone over several pixels have low spatial frequency. The filtering procedure involves moving window concept of a few pixels in size like 3 by 3 or 5 by 5 over each pixel in the image, applying a mathematical calculation for convolution using the pixel values under that window by assigning a weight to each pixel in the window and replacing the central pixel value with the new value. The window is moved along in both the row and column dimensions, one pixel at a time, and the calculation is repeated until the entire image has been filtered and a new image has been generated. It is to be noted that in a moving window concept for the pixels along the border of the image to be act as a center pixel. The border pixels are duplicated temporarily during the convolution process. The next step is image transformation. The image transformation involves the generation of a new image from two or more sources. The source could be a single image involving two or more spectral bands. The resulting image could be produced after using multitemporal or multispectral image data of the same area. The operation may involve simple arithmetic operations such as addition, subtraction or division, to a more complex statistical calculations. For example, spectral image ratioing or image division. Image division is one of the most commonly applied image transformation technique, which reveals the fine variations in spectral responses of planetary features observed in different image bands. The second is principal component analysis or transformation. The principal component analysis is a non-parametric orthogonal linear transformation technique that helps in compressing the dimensionality. The final step of image processing is image classification. In remote sensing, the information hidden in multispectral image pixels or band pixels can be understood in a variety of ways, and image classification is one of them. For example, in classification, the bands are sometimes also called as features, the band pixel value as feature vector, and the graph or plot showing the feature vector as feature space. Image classification is basically about classifying the pattern of rectangular matrix of n by n pixels into classes such as land use, land cover classes. The pattern in a multispectral classification will use pixel value or digital number. The pixel based classification groups the similar pixels into classes. This can be performed by simply comparing pixel values to one another or training the samples of pixels of known identity and then classifying the pattern based on training samples. The resulting classes are clusters or regions in a map form, each of which is identified by a unique color or symbol. The image classification technique can be broadly categorized into two: supervised and unsupervised classification. In supervised method, the user supervises the classification method that uses algorithm employing the pixel values for constructing the particular numerical relationship for each class, such as water, agriculture land, built up area, forest, etc. There are a number of statistical methods used as supervised classifiers. For example, maximum likelihood classifier or maximum likelihood estimation, minimum distance method, parallelopiped method, Bayesian's method, decision tree classification, fuzzy classification and artificial neural network method. Out of this, the maximum likelihood classifier or maximum likelihood estimation is a supervised statistical approach that is used most commonly and is based on two principles. First, MLC considers both the variance and covariance of the class signatures when assigning each pixel to one of the land use, land cover classes represented in the signature file. Second, it is assumed that the pixel in each feature class sample, that is the area of interest in multidimensional space, are normally or equally distributed or is Gaussian, that is probability of occurrence is equal, which convey that a class can be described by mean vector and variance covariance matrix. The second one is unsupervised classification, which unlike the supervised method does not use training sets of images. Rather, it identifies the agglomeration or clustering of image pixels based upon similarity measures. The commonly applied method is distance measure, which often includes Euclidean distance. The classifier segments the whole image randomly into n number of classes, which is assigned by the user. For example, the first one is the satellite image in raster format, in which the yellow blocks show the training samples or the area of interest in a satellite image. The next three figures show the land use, land covers maps generated based on hybrid classification technique, supervised classification and unsupervised classification technique respectively. Now, the final topic in the module, that is applications of image processing. So, the digital image processing techniques has a wide range of applications, such as examining the applicability of images by removal of error or noise before the correct image is utilized by the assigned purpose. The technique of digital image processing helps in detection and extraction of information on physical characteristics such as mineral resources, soil, landform, quantity and quality of water bodies, flood, erosion, and so on. Secondly, biological conditions such as forest, crop, wild animals, etc. Cultural factors such as land use, recreational activities, man-made facilities, utility networks, waste disposal sites. Fourthly, ecological relationships such as eutrophication, salinization, and modification in regimes such as alteration, habitats or drainage patterns, land transformation, land alteration, resource renewal and extraction, or accidents such as oil spills and leaks. Apart from these, the techniques are also widely used in medical image processing and extraplanetary missions. So, dear students, to summarize this module, I hope you would be able to understand the basic concept of a digital image, how it is made up of pixels. You would also be able to understand the basic components of a image processing system. You would also be able to understand by this module that when we first receive a digital image, our first step is to remove the noise or other geometric and radiometric corrections followed by image enhancement, image transformation and image classification schemes. So, this entire process of digital image processing can be studied at 3 levels: low, medium and high. While the low level is related to image acquisition, the medium level is related to image pre-processing, while the higher level includes reconstruction of images, image enhancement, transformation and classification. Hope you all would be benefited from this module. Thank you.